On November 24, 1944, at approximately 29,000 feet above the Japanese capital, a formation of B-29 Superfortress bombers encountered conditions that would expose fundamental flaws in American strategic bombing doctrine. Lieutenant James Hartwell, serving as aircraft commander aboard one of 111 bombers dispatched that day, observed weather phenomena that meteorological science had not yet documented in operational planning materials. The formation encountered wind velocities exceeding 200 miles per hour at altitude atmospheric conditions, later classified as jet stream currents. These upper atmosphere wind patterns had not been incorporated into bombing calculations or aircraft performance models used by the United States Army Air Forces. The combination of extreme wind velocity and complete cloud coverage over the target area rendered standard bombing procedures ineffective. Captain Mike Chun, bombardier aboard Hartwell's aircraft, operated the Norden Mark 15 bombsight, a device that had consumed approximately $1.5 billion in research and development funding between 1933 and 1943. The system calculated bomb trajectory based on aircraft altitude, airspeed, wind drift, and target coordinates. Under the conditions present over Tokyo that day, the ground speed indicators fluctuated between 182 and 412 miles per hour within seconds, making accurate targeting calculations impossible. Of the 111 aircraft participating in the mission, post-strike reconnaissance determined that only 24 dropped ordnance within 10 miles of designated targets. The remaining aircraft scattered approximately $1.7 million worth of bombs across agricultural areas, residential districts, and ocean surfaces. Mission reports filed with 21 Bomber Command classified the operation as unsuccessful due to high-velocity winds at altitude. If you appreciate evidence-based analysis of World War II air operations, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment indicating where you're watching from. This mission represented one data point in a broader pattern. Between November 24th and the end of December 1944, B-29 crews flew 22 high-altitude precision bombing sorties against Japanese industrial targets. Statistical analysis of these missions revealed average bombing accuracy below 5%, meaning fewer than one bomb in 20 fell within 1,000 feet of the intended aim point. For comparison, 8th Air Force operations over Germany during the same period achieved accuracy rates between 30 and 40% under similar operational conditions. The financial costs were documented in quarterly reports submitted to the War Department. Fuel expenditure for these 22 missions totaled approximately $2.4 million. Ordnance costs reached $8.3 million. Aircraft losses numbered 47, with 423 aircrew casualties. Strategic bombing survey assessments conducted after the war determined that damage to Japanese war production from these missions was statistically negligible. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress represented the most technologically advanced bomber aircraft in operational service when production models entered the inventory in 1943. The aircraft featured pressurized crew compartments, remotely controlled defensive gun turrets, and operational ceiling capabilities exceeding 30,000 feet beyond the effective altitude of most Japanese fighter aircraft and anti-aircraft artillery systems in the Pacific Theater. Maximum range specifications listed 3,250 miles, sufficient to conduct bombing operations from newly captured bases in the Mariana Islands to targets throughout the Japanese home islands with return capability. Standard bomb load capacity was 20,000 pounds. Each aircraft carried an 11-man crew. Unit production cost exceeded $639,000 per aircraft, more expensive than a Fletcher-class destroyer. Total program development costs, including research, testing, production facility construction, and initial procurement, reached approximately $3 billion. This exceeded funding allocated to the Manhattan Project during equivalent timeframes. The B-29 program represented the single largest weapons system investment in military history up to that point. 20 Bomber Command, operating from bases in China and India during mid-1944, established initial operational doctrine for B-29 employment. This doctrine derived directly from strategic bombing theory developed by the United States Army Air Corps' Tactical School during the 1930s and refined through 8th Air Force operations in the European theater. The core principle held that precision bombing of specific industrial facilities would systematically destroy an enemy as capacity to wage war. The doctrine specified that bomber formations would operate at altitudes between 27,000 and 30,000 feet, placing them above effective range of anti-aircraft defenses and most fighter interceptors. Bombardiers would use the Norden bombsight to calculate precise release points for individual targets, destroying specific buildings within factory complexes rather than area bombing of entire districts. When the 21st Bomber Command assumed responsibility for B-29 operations from the Marianas in late 1944, this doctrine remained unchanged. Mission planning identified specific targets: coke ovens at the Owata Steel Works, aircraft assembly facilities at Nagoya, steel production centers at Osaka. The operational assumption was that bombing accuracy would match or exceed results achieved in Europe. The jet stream bands of high-velocity wind currents in the upper atmosphere had not been systematically documented in meteorological science prior to B-29 operations over Japan. While commercial airline pilots on Pacific routes had reported unusual wind conditions at high altitude during the 1930s, these observations had not been incorporated into military weather forecasting models or bombing calculations. Over Japan, these wind currents typically flowed from west to east at velocities between 150 and 250 miles per hour during winter months. The currents existed at altitudes between 25,000 and 35,000 feet, precisely the operational altitude specified in B-29 bombing doctrine. When aircraft flew eastward with the jet stream, ground speeds could exceed 450 miles per hour. When flying westward against the stream, ground speeds dropped below 200 miles per hour. The Norden bombsight calculated bomb trajectory based on stable airspeed and predictable wind drift. The device used mechanical computing mechanisms to solve ballistic equations, adjusting for altitude, temperature, and lateral wind deflection. These calculations assumed wind velocity remained relatively constant during the bombing run, typically 30 to 60 seconds from target acquisition to bomb release. In jet stream conditions, wind velocity could vary by 100 miles per hour within seconds as aircraft moved through different layers of the current. The Norden's mechanical calculators could not compensate for this variability. Additionally, the extreme lateral drift caused by 200-mile-per-hour crosswinds pushed aircraft off course faster than bombardiers could adjust. Cloud coverage presented additional complications. Weather patterns over Japan featured cloud cover exceeding 70% during autumn and winter months. The clouds typically formed layers between 10,000 and 25,000 feet, completely obscuring ground features. Visual identification of targets became impossible under these conditions. Mission statistics documented the combined effect of these factors. On November 24th, bombing accuracy against Tokyo registered 1%, meaning 1 bomb per 100 fell within 1,000 feet of the aim point. On December 3rd, accuracy against Nagoya reached 2%. On December 18th, Osaka mission accuracy measured 3%. These figures represented operational failure by any doctrinal standard. General Curtis LeMay assumed command of the 21st Bomber Command on January 20, 1945. Prior to his arrival, command staff had attempted multiple technical solutions to the accuracy problem. Each solution failed to produce significant improvement. Weather forecasting received substantial investment. The Army Air Forces assigned additional meteorological officers to Marianas commands. New forecasting models incorporated data from reconnaissance flights, submarine observations, and weather stations across the Pacific. Prediction accuracy improved marginally, but weather over Japan remained fundamentally unpredictable. Cloud coverage exceeded 80% regardless of forecasting improvements. Engineering teams modified Norden bombsights, adding compensators designed to adjust for high-velocity winds. Drift meters received recalibration. Bombardier training programs added 300 additional hours focused on high-altitude wind compensation techniques. Despite these modifications, accuracy rates remained below 10%. The jet stream introduced too many variables for mechanical correction. The B-29 carried AN/APQ-13 radar bombing systems, the most sophisticated airborne radar in operational service. In theory, radar operators could identify targets through cloud cover using electronic returns. In practice, Japanese cities constructed primarily from wood and paper materials produced minimal radar reflection. Returns appeared fuzzy and indistinct on operator screens. Distinguishing industrial facilities from residential areas proved impossible. Colonel Thomas Power, serving as 21 Bomber Command Operations Officer, developed synchronous bombing techniques in December 1944. This method designated lead crews with the most experienced bombardiers and navigators. These lead aircraft would control entire formations. The lead bombardier would designate the release point, and all aircraft in formation would drop simultaneously when the lead aircraft released its ordnance. This technique produced marginal improvement. If lead crews achieved accurate targeting, entire formations would hit effectively. However, if lead crews missed, which occurred in 90% of missions, due to jet stream and cloud conditions, entire formations missed. The method reduced dispersion but did not solve the fundamental accuracy problem. By late December 1944, staff officers acknowledged that existing solutions were inadequate. Classified reports submitted to headquarters noted that current technology could not overcome the combination of jet stream, winds, and cloud coverage. One assessment stated that improved results would require either weather conditions that could not be controlled or radar technology that did not yet exist. Lieutenant Robert Milhouse served as navigator aboard a B-29 crew operating from Northfield, Japan. Personnel records indicate he was 26 years old in December 1944. He had attended Iowa State University for 2 years before enlisting, studying civil engineering before leaving to join military service. His military occupational specialty was celestial and dead reckoning navigation. He had completed 14 combat missions over Japan between November and early December 1944. Prior to military service, Milhouse worked for the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad, conducting survey work for new rail lines in Montana. This work involved establishing baselines between fixed reference points and calculating distances using theodolite measurements. The work required precise spatial calculation and attention to timing relationships between known positions. On December 8, 1944, Milhouse's aircraft returned from a mission to Nagoya. Post-strike photography indicated their bomb load had impacted 7 miles north of the designated target, an aircraft engine manufacturing facility. The missed distance was typical for missions flown under jet stream conditions. According to post-war interviews conducted by military historians, Milhouse began considering alternative targeting methods that night. His approach derived from surveying experience. If direct observation of a target was impossible, establish targeting based on observable reference points and calculated timing intervals. The method required 3 elements. First, detailed maps showing the approach to the target, including distinctive terrain features visible from altitude. Second, precisely calculated time intervals based on aircraft ground speed. Third, a visual reference system that would eliminate bombardier reaction time variables. For the visual reference, Milhouse proposed using a length of colored string or yarn stretched across the bombardier's plexiglass nose at a calculated angle. When a visible landmark short of the obscured target crossed this string, the bombardier would begin counting at a predetermined rhythm. At a specified count, the bombardier would release ordnance. Milhouse calculated the mathematical relationships on December 9th and 10th. If the aircraft maintained steady ground speed of 250 miles per hour, and if reference landmarks could be identified 30 seconds before the target, margin of error should approximate 300 feet superior to accuracy rates achieved with the Norden under jet stream conditions. The method eliminated several variable factors present in conventional bombing. It did not require the bombardier to track a moving target through a bombsight while compensating for drift. It did not require real-time calculation of wind velocity changes. It required only steady airspeed maintenance by the pilot and accurate timing by the bombardier. On December 11, 1944, Milhouse presented his calculations to his aircraft commander, Captain Ed Morrison. Morrison reviewed the concept and agreed to present it to wing operations staff. On December 12th, both officers met with Colonel Samuel Jenkins, operations officer for the 73rd Bombardment Wing. According to declassified meeting notes, Jenkins initially dismissed the concept. His objections centered on the abandonment of established doctrine and the apparent simplicity of the method compared to sophisticated bombing computer systems. Milhouse argued that the Norden was ineffective under current operational conditions, and that a simpler method might prove more reliable. Captain Morrison supported testing the concept, noting that accuracy rates could not decline significantly from their current 5% level. Jenkins authorized a single test run at the practice bombing range on Tinian. On December 15th, at 0600 hours, Milhouse's crew conducted the test flight. A length of red yarn was stretched across the bombardier's compartment at a 37-degree angle. Milhouse calculated the drop sequence, cross the northern tip of Tinian Island, begin counting at 16 seconds, release at 32 seconds. The target was a painted circle at the practice range. Captain Chun, bombardier, executed the sequence as calculated. At exactly 32 seconds after crossing the designated checkpoint, he released practice bombs. Observer aircraft reported that 4 bombs impacted within a 50-foot circle significantly, more accurate than any recent combat mission results. Colonel Jenkins ordered a second test flight on December 16th under identical conditions. Results replicated the previous day's accuracy. On December 17th, Jenkins authorized presentation to General LeMay and 21 Bomber Command staff. On December 18, 1944, Lieutenant Milhouse briefed his method to 21 Bomber Command Operations staff at Saipan headquarters. Attendees included General Curtis LeMay, Colonel Thomas Power, Colonel Albert Meyer, Chief Bombardier Instructor, and 11 additional field grade officers. According to meeting transcripts, Colonel Meyer objected strenuously to the proposal. Meyer had written standard operating procedures for high-altitude precision bombing and had trained bombardiers on Norden employment for 3 years. He argued that abandoning the Norden contradicted established doctrine and represented regression to primitive targeting methods. Milhouse responded that the Norden was superior in ideal conditions, but that current operational conditions were not ideal. He presented test results showing 92% accuracy compared to 5% combat mission accuracy with conventional methods. Meyer countered that practice range conditions did not replicate combat stress, anti-aircraft fire, or fighter opposition. Milhouse acknowledged this but noted that missing targets by 10 miles also did not constitute combat effectiveness. General LeMay terminated the debate and authorized immediate training of lead crews in the checkpoint timing method. He directed Colonel Meyer to develop training curriculum. LeMay specified that the method would be tested on the next combat mission with suitable cloud coverage conditions. Training began on December 19th. Lead crews from all bombardment wings received instruction in checkpoint identification, timing calculation, and string marker installation. The training program required approximately 30 minutes per crew. Total program cost for materials was documented as 50 cents per string marker and $20 per stopwatch. On January 9, 1945, XE Bomber Command launched 72 B-29 aircraft against the Mitsubishi Aircraft Engine Works at Nagoya. Cloud coverage over the target was forecast at 8/10 conditions that would render conventional visual bombing ineffective. 18 aircraft, serving as formation leads, employed the checkpoint timing method. Squadron bombardiers carried stopwatches and had installed red yarn markers at calculated angles. The formation reached Nagoya at 0930 hours local time at an altitude of 28,000 feet. Cloud coverage matched forecast predictions. Direct visual observation of the target was impossible. Anti-aircraft fire intensity was moderate. Lead bombardiers identified coastal features north of Nagoya as checkpoint references. When designated landmarks crossed the yarn markers, bombardiers activated stopwatches and began counting at 1-second intervals. At predetermined counts varying by aircraft position and approach angle, bombardiers released ordnance. Following aircraft in each formation released when they observed lead aircraft bomb bay doors opening. Reconnaissance aircraft overflew Nagoya at 1400 hours and photographed bomb damage through breaks in cloud coverage. Photo interpretation determined that bombs had impacted buildings 4, 5, 7, 8, and 12 at the Mitsubishi facility. Secondary explosions indicated ordnance storage or fuel tank damage. Analysis estimated that 60% of bombs fell within 500 feet of the designated aim point. For comparison, the previous mission to the same target on December 3, 1944, using conventional Norden bombing methods under similar weather conditions, achieved 4% accuracy with estimated target destruction of 7%. The checkpoint timing method produced 15 times greater accuracy. Mission reports indicated 43 of 72 aircraft dropped on designated targets. Average accuracy across all participating aircraft measured 58% within 1,000 feet. 1 aircraft was lost to anti-aircraft fire. 2 sustained damage requiring repair. Estimated destruction of Mitsubishi facilities was assessed at 35 to 40%. Following successful combat testing at Nagoya, 21 Bomber Command authorized expanded implementation of checkpoint timing methods. Subsequent missions employed increasing numbers of crews trained in the technique. On January 14, 1945, 48 lead crews used checkpoint timing during a mission to Tokyo. Accuracy measured 64% within 1,000 feet. On January 23, 58 lead crews employed the method at Nagoya, achieving 71% accuracy. On February 4, 73 lead crews bombed Kobe with 76% accuracy. The method proved most effective when certain conditions were met. First, visible checkpoints had to be identifiable near the target coastline features, distinctive terrain, or large landmarks. Second, aircraft had to maintain steady ground speed during the timing interval. Third, bombardiers required training in precise timing execution under combat stress. The method was less effective when jet stream velocities exceeded 250 miles per hour, causing ground speed variations that timing calculations could not accommodate. It was ineffective when cloud coverage extended all the way to ground level, obscuring all reference features. It required more extensive pre-mission planning than conventional Norden bombing, as navigators had to identify and map checkpoint features for each target. Despite these limitations, checkpoint timing consistently outperformed conventional high-altitude precision bombing under similar conditions. By March 1945, all B-29 crews and 21 Bomber Command had received training in the method. It became standard procedure for missions with forecast cloud coverage exceeding 7/10. Implementation. Costs were minimal. Each aircraft required approximately $250 in modifications, primarily stopwatches and installation of string marker mounting hardware. Training required 3 to 4 hours per crew. Total program cost across all 21 bomber command units was estimated at under $100,000. Japanese military intelligence documented changes in B-29 bombing effectiveness beginning in late January 1945. A captured report from the 244th Fighter Regiment, translated by Allied intelligence officers in March 1945, included observations about American bombing technique modifications. Lieutenant Colonel Hiroshi Nakamura, regimental commander, noted in his after-action report dated February 15, 1945, American bomber formations now achieve precision we did not previously observe when targets are obscured by cloud coverage. They destroy factory facilities with accuracy that cannot be explained solely by radar capabilities. Their technique has changed. The modification produces effective results. The report did not identify the specific method Americans were employing. Japanese observers could not determine from ground level that bombers were using visual checkpoint references and timing calculations rather than radar or direct visual bombing. Japanese air defense doctrine assumed that cloud coverage would degrade American bombing accuracy. Anti-aircraft units and fighter interceptors had observed that previous missions under heavy cloud coverage produced minimal damage to designated targets. The improved accuracy documented in February and March required adjustments to defensive planning. Additional captured documents from Japanese military facilities indicated increased concern about daylight precision bombing capabilities. Previous assessments had concluded that American forces could not effectively target specific facilities without clear visual conditions. The improved results under adverse weather conditions suggested that defensive planning assumptions required revision. The United States Strategic Bombing Survey, established by the War Department in November 1944, conducted comprehensive analysis of bombing effectiveness against Japanese targets. Survey teams assessed missions flown between November 1944 and August 1945, comparing pre-strike planning documents with post-strike damage photography and ground inspection results. For the period between January and March 1945 before 21, bomber command transitioned to low-altitude incendiary bombing campaigns. Survey analysis determined that checkpoint timing methods produced measurable improvements in bombing effectiveness. Average accuracy for missions employing checkpoint timing methods measured 68% of bombs within 1,000 feet of aim points, compared to 5% for conventional high-altitude precision bombing under similar weather conditions. The improved accuracy translated to reduced sortie requirements against specific targets, as facilities sustained greater damage from initial attacks and required fewer follow-up missions. Statistical analysis indicated that improved accuracy reduced aircraft losses by approximately 30%, compared to projected losses if conventional methods had continued. Aircraft faced anti-aircraft fire and fighter interception for shorter durations because fewer return missions were required. Survey estimates indicated that approximately 14 to 18 B-29 aircraft were preserved due to reduced target exposure. Crew casualties declined proportionally. Survey data estimated that 140 to 180 aircrew members avoided injury or death due to reduced sortie requirements during the January-March period. These figures were extrapolated from casualty rates during November-December 1944 missions and projected against actual January-March sortie numbers. Target destruction efficiency improved from an average of 5% facility damage per mission to 68% average damage per mission. This meant that industrial facilities designated for destruction were eliminated with fewer resources expended per target. Bomb expenditure decreased per unit of target destruction achieved, improving the cost-effectiveness ratio of strategic bombing operations. Lieutenant Robert Milhouse completed his combat tour in May 1945 and returned to the United States in August 1945 following the Japanese surrender. He separated from military service in November 1945 with the rank of first lieutenant. He returned to Iowa State University and completed his civil engineering degree in 1947. Post-war employment records indicate Milhouse worked for the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad, resuming his pre-war position in survey and route planning. He worked for the railroad until retirement in 1978. He did not pursue military aviation career opportunities or defense industry positions despite his wartime innovations. Milhouse did not publish memoirs or give public interviews about his wartime service. His name appears in 21 Bomber Command mission reports and operations orders, but not in historical accounts published during the 1950s and 1960s. The checkpoint timing method was described in technical documents, but not attributed to individual developers. In 1986, Dr. Howard Morrison, a military historian researching B-29 tactical innovations, located references to Milhouse and declassified 21 Bomber Command records. Morrison contacted Milhouse, then 76 years old, and conducted an interview about the development of checkpoint timing methods. This interview, archived at the Air Force Historical Research Agency, represents the only direct account from Milhouse regarding the innovation. According to the interview transcript, Milhouse characterized the method as common-sense application of surveying principles and declined to accept credit for saving lives or changing doctrine. He stated that any competent navigator with surveying experience would have developed similar solutions given the same operational problems. Milhouse died on March 12, 1991. At age 73, his obituary in the Des Moines Register identified him as a retired civil engineer and World War II veteran, but did not mention his contributions to bombing methodology. The fundamental principles developed by Lieutenant Milhouse in 1944 verifying aircraft position against observable reference points and calculating weapon release based on timing intervals rather than direct target observation influenced subsequent weapons guidance system development. Cruise missile navigation systems employ variations of checkpoint verification. Missiles compare terrain features observed by sensors against stored reference maps, verifying position before terminal guidance phase activation. This process mirrors the concept of identifying observable landmarks to confirm position relative to obscured targets. The United States Air Force Weapons School at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, includes checkpoint offset targeting in its curriculum for bomber aircraft crews. The technique is taught as a backup method for conditions where primary guidance systems are unavailable or ineffective. Joint Publication 309, Joint Fire Support, published by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, includes checkpoint offset targeting, abbreviated CBOT, in its glossary of targeting methods. The publication defines CBOT as a targeting technique that uses known references to determine weapon release parameters when direct observation of the target is not possible. The method remains relevant in contested electromagnetic environments where GPS guidance may be jammed or denied. Aircraft crews can navigate and target using visual references and timing calculations without depending on electronic systems vulnerable to interference. Modern implementation differs substantially from 1944 methods. Contemporary aircraft use digital flight management systems rather than string markers and stopwatches. However, the underlying mathematical principle establishing position relative to observable features and calculating release timing based on velocity and distance relationships remains unchanged. The persistence of these methods in military doctrine 75 years after their development demonstrates the validity of Milhouse's approach. Solutions to complex problems sometimes emerge not from advanced technology, but from systematic application of basic principles. This documentary has examined the development and implementation of checkpoint timing bombing methods during World War II Pacific air operations. The innovation emerged from operational necessity, succeeded through mathematical precision, and influenced doctrine for subsequent generations. The story illustrates that significant tactical innovations can originate from junior, Personnel applying practical experience to urgent operational problems.